Okay, this is lesson 7.5. It's titled Circles in the Coordinate Plane. The coordinate plane is just a graph, an XY graph. So we've been looking a lot at circles and radius and arc length and sector area. But we haven't looked at graphing circles on an actual XY graph. So that's what we're going to look at. We need to talk about the equation of a circle in standard form. We need to talk about how to find the center and the radius of an equation of a circle in standard form and graph a circle. This is a pretty easy lesson. There's not much to it. The equation's easy. Finding the center and the radius of a circle in standard form is pretty easy. And once you have the center and the radius of a circle, it's pretty easy to graph it as well. So the equation of a circle in standard form, let's talk about that. Equation of a circle in standard form. So here's the equation. In parentheses x minus h squared plus in parentheses y minus k squared is equal to r squared. Now the center of the circle is located at the point h, comma k. The radius of the circle is r. Now, but before we get into this, I actually want to do a little bit of background here. I want you to write this problem down. This is something that we have done before. It's been a while, but this was back in unit 3 or 4, way back, a couple months ago. If I asked you to graph this, I want you to write this down. Y equals, in parentheses, x minus 2 squared plus 30. This is a parabola. This is a parabola in vertex form. And we're going to graph, the way that we learned how to graph this was using transformations. The x minus 2 inside the parenthesis, that moved the graph to the right 2 units. This plus 3 on the outside of the function, this moved the graph up 3 units. Hopefully this is sounding a little familiar to you. But I want you to draw a graph. Go to the right 2, up 3. That's where you place the vertex. Now, parabola, in case you forgot, and I hope you haven't, but in case you've forgotten, a parabola is a U-shaped graph. If the vertex is a 2, 3, this parabola is facing up. Just not to spend too much time on it, the parabola would look something like that. We've seen this kind of graphing in a lot of different functions, not just parabolas, but something else you might remember. Another type of graph would be absolute value graphs. These straight vertical bars here, this one here and this one here, that denotes absolute value. The absolute value is a V-shaped graph, but you use transformations here. Next plus 1 means move to the left 1 unit, minus 4 means move down 4 units. So to the left 1, down 4, and really the only difference is this is a V-shaped absolute value graph. So the point I'm trying to make here is you've seen how to graph using transformations. There really is no difference in what we're doing here. Inside this set of parentheses is a transformation that moves the circle to the left or to the right. The transformations occurring inside here, this parenthesis with the y variable, those are transformations that move the graph up or down correspondingly. So your homework is going to start, the first couple of problems are going to be given an equation in standard form, and all you're going to have to do is state the center of the circle and the radius. You're not going to have to graph it yet. So here's example 1. Find the center and the radius of the circle. So for part A, let's do x plus 2 squared, y minus 4 squared equals 16. So go ahead and write that down. X plus 2 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 16. Two things you got to find: the center and the radius. Now remember, let me go back to these couple of example problems that we did. Inside the parenthesis that was being squared, it moved in the opposite direction. X minus 2 actually moved the parabola to the right 2 units. Here, x plus 1, since it's inside this function, moved the graph to the left 1 unit. So if it's inside some kind of a function, like this is a squaring function here, or this is an absolute value function, if it's in some kind of a function, it has the opposite effect. That's something you need to consider here. X plus 2 squared, that's inside of a squaring function, and the same thing here, y minus 4 squared is also inside a squaring function. So this x plus 2 is actually going to move the circle to the left 2 units, because that's the opposite. You got to think inside the function. X plus 2 moves it to the left, whereas here y minus 4, since this is inside of a squaring function, that's actually going to move the graph up 4 units. So now if you imagine where the circle moves, the center, instead of the center being at the origin, the center of this circle is moved 2 units to the left and up 4 units. So the center is at -2, 4. That's the center of the circle. Now, the most common mistake I see students make is in regards to finding the radius. This number here is not the radius. If you take a look here, r squared, where r is the radius, so you have to think what number squared is equal to 16. Instead of thinking about a 16 there, think of, okay, what number can I raise to the second power that's equal to 16? And it's 4. 16 is equal to 4 squared, so this is your r value. The radius is 4. Okay, another one here to try. Let's do parentheses x minus 3 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 9. Same directions. Identify the center and the radius of the circle. So if you think about the transformations occurring both horizontally and vertically, x minus 3 is going to move the whole circle to the right 3 units. Y plus 2 is actually going to move the circle down 2 units. So instead of the center of the circle being at the origin, it's moving to the right 3 and down 2, making the center 3, -2. The radius is not 9. What number squared equals 9? And that's 3. So the radius is 3. Now, just one more here so that to avoid confusion. What about this one? What if we had x plus 4 squared plus y squared equals 25. For some reason on an equation like this, I see a lot of students make a mistake. Same directions here. Find the center, find the radius. So according to this part of the equation, x plus 4 to the second power, that's going to be a transformation that moves the graph to the left 4 units. But what about here? It's this piece in particular that confuses students for some reason. Y squared. There isn't anything inside the parenthesis with y. It's just plain old y squared. What does that mean? It means the graph hasn't moved up or down at all. The graph moves to the left 4 units. So that means it moves to the left to negative 4, but what's the y component of the center of the circle? If it doesn't move up or down, then the y component is just 0. So the center is negative 4, comma 0. Radius would be what number squared equals 25, and that number is 5. So the first part of your homework, you're not graphing the circles, you're just finding the center and the radius. So if we take a look, problems 1 through 6, this is what I want you to work on here. I'm going to ask that this video be paused, work on 1 through 6, and when you're done with that, we'll pick it up again and we'll talk about actually starting to graph these. If you look at starting at number 7 through 10, you're actually going to start graphing those. So we'll pick that up after you finish problems 1 through 6. So go ahead and pause this. So take a look at the answers here for questions 1 through 6. You can see them right here. Just make sure that you're getting some of the correct answers. Here's question 4, negative 14, comma 0. Radius is 4. So getting back to notes, I actually have to start graphing these now, and this isn't so bad. If you know the center of the circle and the radius, it should be pretty easy to produce a graph. So let's take a look at this equation. X minus 1 squared so this equation here, x minus 1 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 9. I'm going to ask you to graph this. In order to graph, you need to know two things. You need to know where the center of the circle is, and you need to know the radius. Luckily for you, you just practice these, and you're experts, I'm sure, by now. X minus 1 means the circle moves to the right 1 unit. Y plus 3 means it moves down 3 units. So the center of the circle is 1 comma negative 3, and it has a radius of 3. First thing I would do is locate the center of the circle, 1 comma negative 3. Now I would use the fact that we know the radius. So starting at the center, I would go up 3 and then go down 3, to the right 3, and then to the left 3, in all directions, going up, down, left, right, all 3 units. So put a point here, 1, 2, 3, put a point here, go over 1, 2, 3, put a point here, down 3. So see how I've put points going around the center. They're all 3 units away from the center, and then as best and as neatly as you can, try to fit in a circle there. Yours may not look as good as mine, but I've had years of practice, and you'll never be as good as me, so I'm kidding. But there's the circle. Center is at the point 1, -3, and it has a radius of 3. So getting back to your assignment, why don't you work on questions 7, 8, 9, and 10, graphing those circles. Again, I'm going to ask that you pause this while you work on that. When you're done, get this going again to finish up the lesson. So just checking the answers. That's what number 7 should look like. Center is at 1, 0 with a radius of 2. Number 8, center is at 1, 2, and has a radius of 3. Over here, it's a teeny tiny little circle. It just goes down 2 units on the y-axis. It has a radius of 1. Number 10, go to the left 3, down 1, and it has a radius of 4. So the next section of homework, 11 through 16, we're actually going backwards now. I've provided you with the center and the radius. You got to tell me what the equation is. Let's practice that here. Example 3. Write the equation. So using the fact that the center of the circle is -2, 5, and that the radius is 4. Let's make an equation here. Now the equation is going to be x minus h squared plus parentheses y minus k squared equals the radius squared. Now radius squared, that's going to be pretty easy. Radius 4 squared is just 16, so we know it's going to equal 16. Now remember, the center of the circle, this is h, and that's k. X minus h means x minus -2. X minus -2 turns out to be x plus 2. Y minus k means y minus 5. And that's really all there is to writing the equation. Given the center and the radius of the circle, that's all you need to do to write the equation of the circle. So on your homework, questions 11 all the way through 20, well, 11 through 14 in particular, 15 and 16 I'm going to talk about here in just a second. 17, 18, 19, and 20, you have to find the center and the radius just based on the picture of the circle. For example, the center of the circle here is 0, 4, and you start at the center and count out to the outer edge. The radius is 1, 2, 3. I would write that information down. The center is 0, 4, the radius is 3. You can use that information to write the equation of the circle. Now, I'm going to help you with number 15. We're going to do this one together. Not that. There we go. So this is number 15 off your worksheet. We've been given the center, but what we don't know is the radius. Now, we have been given the location of another point on the edge of the circle. What we need to figure out is what's the distance from the center of the circle to that point. What's the distance? So you lucky ducks, we're going to use the distance formula, which we haven't used in a long time, I think since Unit 5. But the distance formula is x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared, all underneath a big giant square root. This could be your x1 and your y1. This could be your x2 and your y2. So we need to use the distance formula to find the distance between the center and the point on the circle. Once we know the distance, that distance is the radius. So it just requires a little more work here. So the distance is going to be x2, which is negative 18, minus x1, which is 0, squared, plus y2, which is negative 1, minus y1, which is 0, squared. Negative 18 minus 0 is negative 18 squared. Negative 1 minus 0 is negative 1, so that's negative 1 squared. Now, negative 18 squared is 324. Negative 1 squared is 1. So the distance from the center of that circle to that point on the circle is the square root of 325. That's equal to the radius. Now we are able to write the equation of the circle. The center of the circle is 0, 0. That means it doesn't move to the left, right, or it doesn't move up, down. So that's just an x squared plus y squared. Now this is equal to r squared, but r is the square root of 325. If you square the square root of 325, the square takes care of the square root. So you're just left with 325. So it's x squared plus y squared equals 325. You would now need to work on number 16. It's the same idea. Find the distance between the center and the point on the circle using the distance formula. That distance becomes the radius. So working through these, work on however much you can get done. The more you can get done, the better. Then you can start to work on the review assignment, which is due next time because the test is next time. I would not spend any more time on this circle assignment than you need to. I would get right to that review right away. Other than that, that is it for this lesson. Good luck.